Once upon a time, in the rich area of Ikoyi, Lagos, lived an old woman named Madam Felicia Nwankwo. She was 68 years old and she had everything money could buy. Big houses, cars, shopping plazas, landed properties, and even a mansion in Abuja. But deep inside her heart, she was a lonely woman. She had 3 grown-up children. She raised them with love and gave them everything. But now that she was old, they didn't care about her anymore. Everything changed the day she collapsed. It was a Monday morning. Madam Felicia had just come back from the hospital. The doctor told her to rest because her blood pressure was very high. Her driver had gone outside to argue with a downfall driver. The house help Nkem was not around, so Madam Felicia tried to open the gate by herself. She slipped and her head hit the tiled staircase. Blood came out and she passed out. When she opened her eyes, she was on the hospital bed. She looked around and no one was there. None of her children came to see her. After a few days, the hospital allowed her to go home. That night, while lying on her bed, she had her children talking in the hallway. They didn't know she was awake and they didn't know her bedroom door was slightly open. Adeze, her first daughter, said, "I'm tired. Mama should just share her properties and stop wasting time." Obiora, her only son, replied, "No rush. Let her die first. She might give everything to that house help." Chidema, the last born, laughed. "She's already old now. Maybe she'll even forget where she kept the documents." Felicia sat on her bed, shaking. Her hands gripped the cup of Lipton in her hand. Her children were waiting for her to die. That night, she didn't cry. She just looked at the ceiling and whispered, "I will not die yet. I want to see who my children really are." She picked up her phone and called her lawyer, Barrister Iranya, the only man she trusted. "Sir," she said, "I want to give you power over all my properties for 6 months. I want to go away and I want to pretend I'm someone else." The lawyer was shocked. "Are you okay, madam?" She smiled. "Yes, I want to become a poor woman. I want to see how my children will treat me when they think I have nothing." 2 weeks later, a woman wearing old clothes and headscarf knocked on the gate. She called herself Madam Onyeka. She told the security man she was from Abia State and needed to work as a cleaner. But this woman was Madam Felicia in disguise. She had covered her face with makeup and dust to look poor. She changed her voice and wore slippers from the market. She had called Chidema earlier using a different number. "Hello, I saw a poster that you needed a cleaner." Chidema replied, "Just one. If you're serious, come, we'll test you." Madam Felicia entered her own house as a stranger. Chidema didn't even look at her. "Go and clean the backyard," she said to her, still busy on her phone. The first week, Madam Onyeka, who was Felicia in disguise, washed floors, cleaned toilets, and cooked food. Nobody looked at her twice. In fact, they treated her badly. One morning, her son Obiora came to the house with a woman. They went into the guest room and stayed there for hours. When Madam Felicia knocked and said, "Sir, should I wash your car?" Obiora came out, looked at her and said, "Don't touch it. That car is not for poor people like you." Another day, Adeze returned from Dubai. She threw her bag at Madam Onyeka. "Carry this bag, you slow goats." The bag slipped and fell on the ground. Adeze slapped her so hard. "This bag cost 300,000 naira. Do you want to spoil it?" she screamed. Madam Felicia bowed her head. "Sorry, ma." Her heart was heavy, but she kept quiet. There was a young housemaid named Ruth. Ruth was just 19 years old and had been working in the house for 4 months. One evening, Ruth whispered, "Mama, I don't think you are who you say you are." Felicia was shocked. "Why do you say that? You sweep like someone who is not used to suffering. You look at this house like you know it well." Felicia smiled. "You are very smart, Ruth, but keep my secret for now." They became friends. Ruth was the only one who gave her water when she coughed. She helped her when no one was looking. One morning, Madam Onyeka was mopping the floor near Obiora's room. He was on a call and forgot to close his door. She heard him say, "Yes, the documents are still with the lawyer. Once that old woman dies, we'll take over the properties." The cleaner, ignore her, she's useless. Madam Felicia stood still. She had just heard her own son say he wanted her to die. Suddenly, Obiora turned and saw her at the door. "You, what are you doing here?" he shouted. I was just passing." He grabbed her arm roughly. "Were you listening to my call? Are you mad?" She looked down humbly. "No, sir." He raised his hand to slap her, but this time she caught it. She held his hand, firm and strong. Obiora's eyes widened. He looked at her face. He stared deeply into her eyes. His mouth opened. "Mommy?" Obiora stood frozen in the corridor. He was still holding Madam Onyeka's hand, but now he looked at her closely and something felt familiar about her face. Those eyes, that nose, the shape of her lips. "Mommy?" he said again, this time softer. Madam Felicia, disguised as the cleaner, slowly let go of his hand. Her face was calm, too calm. "I'm sorry, sir," she said in a low voice. Then she turned and walked away. Obiora ran back into his room, picked up his phone and called Adeze. "Hello? Adeze," he said, almost out of breath. "That cleaner in this house, something is not right. I think she might be Mommy." Adeze laughed loudly over the phone. "Are you drunk?" "I'm serious. The way she looked at me today, her grip, her eyes, I swear she looks like her. What if she's testing us?" Adeze paused. "Okay, calm down. Where is she now?" "I don't know. She walked to the backyard." Adeze scoffed. "Go and confirm. But if this is one of your jokes, Obiora, I swear." He dropped the call and rushed downstairs. He searched the backyard. Nothing. He ran to the boys' quarters, checked the kitchen, even checked the gate. The cleaner was gone. Her slippers were still by the door, but she had disappeared. He asked the security man, "Where is that cleaner, Madam Onyeka?" The man looked confused. "Oga, she didn't leave through this gate though. I didn't see her at all." Obiora ran back inside, sweating. Fear crept into his chest. What if she's really Mom? What if she had everything I said? By evening, the house was quiet and the air was heavy. Obiora sat on the couch, staring into space. Chidinma was upstairs on TikTok and Adeze hadn't returned from her spa trip. None of them knew what was coming. At exactly 9 a.m. the next day, the security man rang the doorbell. "Sir, there's a man at the gate. He said he's a lawyer. He brought letter for the family." Obiora's chest tightened. "Bring him in." A tall man in a black suit walked in. He held a brown envelope. "Good morning," he said. "My name is Barrister Iranya. I represent Madam Felicia Okonkwo." Obiora sat up quickly. "You've seen her. Is she okay?" The lawyer nodded. "She's well and safe." He placed the envelope on the table. "This is a formal letter from your mother. She asked me to deliver it to the three of you in person." Adeze had just come downstairs with her sunglasses still on. Chidinma came in with a bottle of yogurt. They opened the letter. It was typed and signed. The lawyer read it out loud. "To my children, by the time you read this, I would have disappeared from your life for some time. Not because I am dead, but because I needed to see the truth with my own eyes. You didn't know that the poor cleaner in your house was me. I lived among you, worked in my own house, and I watched how you treated people who you believed had nothing. You slapped me, shouted at me, and insulted me. Not once did any of you show love or care, but one girl, Ruth, the maid, who was kind to me. I want you to know that everything you enjoyed came from my years of hard work. I cleaned rich people's houses before I became rich myself, but I never treated anyone the way you treated me. From today, I'm making amends." The lawyer brought out the second document. "This is a letter of intent to change her property ownership. She's giving full management of her shopping plazas to me for now, but once her health improves, she will decide on who truly deserves to inherit what." "This is nonsense," Adeze shouted. Chidinma stood up, eyes wide. She was that woman, the cleaner. Obiora buried his face in his palms. The lawyer said, she also asked me to collect the keys to her bedroom, her safe and her office. From now on, none of you have access until further notice. That same day, the lawyer walked into the servants' quarters. He found Ruth, the young maid. "My name is Barrister Iranya," he said. "Madam Felicia asked me to bring this for you." He handed her an envelope. Ruth opened it and gasped. It was a check, a very big one. She said thank you, the lawyer added, for being kind, for treating her like a human being. Tears rolled down Ruth's face. That night, the whole house was quiet. Adeze was pacing the room, making calls to her husband. Chidinma locked herself in her room, too embarrassed to speak. Obiora sat in the dark, thinking about all the things he said, about all the times he wished his mother dead. At 11:17 p.m., Obiora's phone buzzed. It was a WhatsApp message from an unknown number. He opened it and a video began to play. In the video, the cleaner was in the kitchen, mopping the floor. Then Adeze walked in, slapped her and called her useless. In another clip, Chidinma poured dirty water in the bucket she just cleaned. And another clip showed Obiora pushing her and shouting, "Get out of the way." Obiora's hands started shaking. He opened Instagram and the video was already trending, over 120,000 views. He dropped his phone. "What have we done?" he whispered to himself. The sun had not yet fully risen, but trouble had already started. By 6:45 a.m., a crowd was standing outside Madam Felicia's mansion in Ikoyi. Some were neighbors, others were strangers who had seen the viral video overnight. A few people were pointing, some were whispering, others held their phone, recording live videos for social media. Inside the house, chaos had begun. By morning, the video had reached Facebook, TikTok, and even Twitter. Over 2.3 million views in less than 12 hours. Comments were flying. "How can you slap your own mother just because she wore rags? This is why rich people hide their wealth. God bless that housemaid, she will never suffer. Obiora should be ashamed, that man is evil." News blogs picked it up. Everyone was talking about the rich woman who was disguised as a cleaner and how her children failed her test. The gate was filled with journalists, vloggers, and random people shouting, "Is it true? Where is the wicked son? We want to talk to Ruth. Where's Madam Felicia now?" The security man was confused. He kept begging people to go back, but they wouldn't. Inside the house, Adeze was screaming on the phone. "Why is this happening to me? My friends have seen the video. I have an event next week. I can't even go out anymore." Chidinma sat on the stairs, crying. "We didn't know it was her." Obiora sat silently on the couch. His phone kept ringing, but he didn't answer. He felt shame crawling all over him, cold, heavy, and unforgiving. While the children were hiding, Ruth was sitting inside a boat ride on her way to a TV station in Victoria Island. She had been invited to share her story. She wore a simple yellow dress and her hair natural. Her voice shook at first, but she spoke from her heart. "I didn't know the cleaner was Madam Felicia, but I treated her like my own mother because I've been poor too. I know how it feels when people look down on you." The interviewer smiled and said to her, "And now she has rewarded you." Ruth smiled too. "Yes, but even if she didn't, I would still do the same thing." That evening, Barrister Iranya came again. He walked into the house and called all three children together. He placed another envelope on the table. "This one," he said, "is more serious." Obiora opened it. His hands were shaking. Inside was a letter and a new Lego document. The letter said, "I gave birth to 3 children, but I raised them alone after their father died. I begged, worked, and struggled to make you comfortable. But I've also kept one secret from all of you. You are not the only children I have. Before I married your father, I had a daughter when I was 17. My parents forced me to give her away. I never saw her again until recently. Her name is Chioma and she's coming home." Adeze jumped up angrily. "What nonsense is this? What do you mean another child?" Chidinma shouted, "This must be fake." The lawyer raised his hand. It's not fake. Madam Felicia found her 6 months ago. Chioma is 43 years old. She works with a legal firm in Enugu. She has been helping your mother quietly ever since. Obiora stood up. So what does this mean? The lawyer pulled out a second file. This document shows that Madam Felicia has added Chioma's name to her will. She now has equal rights to the properties. In fact, Madam has placed her in charge of her health, legal affairs and decision making. We don't know this woman, Adaeze screamed. The lawyer calmly replied, your mother does, and she trusts her. Just as the tension was rising, the landline in the house rang. Obiora picked it up. Hello? A woman's voice came through. Is this Obiora? Yes, who is this? This is Chioma Nwankwo, your sister. You don't know me yet, but you will. Obiora's throat went dry. Where is my mother? He asked. Chioma's voice was firm, calm and serious. She's resting and she's safe, but she doesn't want to speak to any of you right now. Please let us talk to her. You had your chance, Chioma said coldly, and you failed it. That night, Adaeze packed her bags and stormed out. She said she was going back to her husband in Lekki. Chidinma cried for hours. She tried calling her mother's number, but it didn't go through. Obiora stayed awake all night, staring at the ceiling. He remembered the slap, the insults, the words. She's old, let her die. He really wanted to take those words back, but it was too late. 2 days later, the lawyer returned again, this time with Chioma. She wore a simple blue gown, no makeup, no flashy jewelry. She looked quiet, smart and serious. She walked into the mansion for the first time. Obiora looked at her and she looked like their mother. The same eyes, the same walk. He stood up to greet her. Chioma, he said, please, we didn't know. We were wrong. Chioma looked at him, then turned to the lawyer. Barrister, activate phase 2. Let's freeze the accounts. They've had enough. The house that once felt like a palace was now filled with fear. Chidinma barely came out of her room. Obiora stopped going to the plaza. Adaeze had gone back to Lekki, but even there, her peace was gone. The shame was too much. The comments online were getting worse. The video of their mother sweeping the floor, being slapped and insulted, had now passed 5 million views. Even churches were using it for sermon on Sundays. On Monday morning, Barrister Iranya returned again, this time with 2 police escorts and a folder of court papers. He didn't waste time. As of this morning, he said, all your mother's bank accounts have been frozen. Obiora stood up. What? Why? Because she no longer trusts your hands. Any attempt to access her money will be reported to the authorities. He dropped 3 papers on the table, 1 for each child. These are restraining orders. You're not allowed to go near her hospital, her estate office, or her private residence in Abuja. Chidinma whispered, she really hates us now. The lawyer replied, she doesn't hate you. She's just protecting herself. That same day, Chioma entered the family's company office. She didn't yell, she didn't make a scene. She simply handed over new appointment letters, replacing Obiora as plaza manager and putting trusted staff in charge of the shops. She brought in an accountant to check everything. Any money stolen will be traced, she said calmly. Obiora tried to speak. Chioma, please, I know I messed up, but I'm still her son. Chioma looked at him and replied, you were her son, but you forgot how to act like one. Meanwhile, Adaeze called Ruth in secret. She asked to meet her at a cafe in Lekki. Ruth came in quietly and sat down. Adaeze placed a brown envelope on the table. Take it, she said. That's 1 million naira. Just go online and say the video was fake. Say my mother paid you to act it. Ruth looked at the envelope and then looked at her. You think I care about money more than the truth? Adaeze hissed. You think you're now a saint, eh? Do you know who I am? Ruth stood up. I know exactly who you are, and soon the whole world will too. She left the cafe without touching the money. Adaeze sat alone, her hands shaking with anger. At the peaceful house in Aja, Madam Felicia sat on a chair near the window. Her lawyers brought the papers. Her hands shook slightly, but she signed every page. Chioma sat beside her. "Are you sure about all this, Mommy?" Chioma asked. Felicia nodded. "Yes, I have seen their hearts. Not once did they ask how I felt. They only cared about what I had." She sighed. "But I want to be fair. I won't leave them with nothing. I just want them to learn that love is not about money." The lawyer handed her the final page. She wrote, "To Ruth, who saw me when no one else did, I leave 10 million naira, a scholarship, and my blessing. To Chioma, my first child, my lost star, I give half of everything. To Obiora, Adaeze, and Chidinma, you will receive what is enough, not what you expected. Let this be a lesson that money without love is a curse." At the mansion, Chidinma had locked herself in her mother's room. She sat on the bed, holding one of her mother's old wrappers and crying. She remembered when she was small, how her mother used to bathe her with warm water, how she sang to her when she was sick. Tears dropped on the wrapper.
"I miss you, Mommy,"
she whispered.
"But I treated you like a nobody."
Suddenly, the bedroom door opened. It was Obiora. "They've changed the house deed," he said. "We're not even owners anymore. We're just visitors." He sat beside her. "What do we do now?" Chidinma asked. "We apologize," Obiora replied. "But will she listen?" "I don't know." That night, there was a knock at the front door. Obiora opened it, and standing at the door was Ruth. She held a small envelope. "This is from your mother," she said. "She told me to bring it myself." Obiora opened it, and inside was a note that read, "I'll be coming to the house tomorrow. I want to speak to each of you face to face." Chidinma read it and gasped. "She's coming here?" Obiora looked at the note again, and below the signature, one line was added. "This is not just a visit, it's Judgment Day." The next morning, before the sun fully came out, a black SUV slowly drove into the compound. Everyone in the house stood still. The air felt heavy, like rain was coming, but not from the sky. It came from Judgment. The car door opened. Madam Felicia stepped out, dressed in a clean blue lace, head held high. Her walking stick tapped gently on the ground, but her steps were strong. She had returned, not as a cleaner or as a victim, but as a mother who saw everything and came back with truth in her mouth. Nobody said a word as she entered the sitting room. Obiora, Chidinma, and Adaeze stood in line like school children waiting for punishment. Felicia didn't sit at first. She stood and looked at them, one by one. The same eyes that once begged for their love now looked at them with disappointment. "You have my face," she said softly, "but you do not have my heart." "Obiora," she said, turning to him, "you're my only son, the one I carried for 9 months. I worked 2 jobs just to pay for your university fees abroad." She stepped closer to him. "But you said I should die, so you can take over what I built." Obiora broke into tears.
"Mommy, I didn't mean it. I was angry and selfish. Please forgive me."
She didn't move. "Do you know how much it hurts to hear you say those words? You were supposed to protect me. Instead, you became a vulture waiting for me to die." He dropped to his knees.
"Mommy, please, I beg you."
She looked at him for a long time, then said, "I forgive you, but I no longer trust you. You hit me," she said calmly. Adaeze tried to talk, but Felicia raised her hand. "You slapped me, Adaeze, called me names, insulted me in front of strangers, all because you thought I was poor." Adaeze's eyes were red.
"Mommy, I didn't know it was you."
"That is the point," Felicia said, her voice sharper now. "You shouldn't treat anyone that way, whether rich or poor." She looked her up and down. "You care more about your reputation than your soul." Adaeze looked away with tears in her eyes. "You will receive nothing more than 1 flat in Surulere. That's enough for someone who only knows how to wear lace and fly to Dubai." She turned to Chidinma and said, "You were the baby I thought would stay close to me forever. The one I carried on my back even when I was sick. But you called me a wicked old woman. Chidima ran to her.
Mommy, please. I was stupid. I miss you every day. I haven't slept well. Please forgive me.
Felicia wiped a tear from her own eye. You will work for your own share, Chidima. I have placed you under Chioma. If she says you are honest, you will get more. If not, you will get nothing. Chidima nodded quickly.
Yes, ma. Thank you, Mommy. I'll prove myself.
Then she turned. Where is Ruth? The young maid came forward, smiling shyly. You are not my blood, Felicia said, but you treated me better than those who came from my womb. She opened her bag and brought out a small envelope. This is the deed to a 3-bedroom house in Aja and a check for 10 million naira. Ruth gasped. She fell on her knees. Mama, no, I didn't do it for money. I know, Felicia said, smiling gently. That's the more reason why you deserve it. The whole room was silent, even the walls seemed to listen. Finally, she looked at Chioma, her first daughter, the one she gave away at birth, the one she found again after so many years. You stayed with me during my surgery. You helped me hide when the pain was too much. You didn't ask for anything, you just wanted to know your mother. Chioma stepped forward and said, Mommy, you don't owe me anything. Felicia nodded slowly. But you have earned everything. She handed her the last document. This is my final will. You will manage all my properties. The staff will report to you. When I die, you will decide how to share everything. I trust your heart. Chioma cried, not from greed, but from love, and she hugged her mother tightly. Madam Felicia sat down at last. Her voice was tired but strong. I'm not dying yet, but when I do, I want peace, not war. Let today be a new beginning. Let this shame teach you to love people and not things. She stood up with her walking stick. If I could test you once, I can test you again. Be careful how you treat strangers, because next time it might be your future in disguise. A year had passed. Ruth was now studying at a private university. Chioma managed the business wisely. The shopping plazas were doing better than ever. Chidima was still learning under her, slowly earning back trust. Obiora opened a small business and started to change his ways. Adeze disappeared from social media and quietly moved to her Sululere flat. And as for Madam Felicia, she was still alive, still strong, and every morning she would sit on her balcony, drink tea and smile because she had finally seen the truth. The moral lesson of this story reminds us to not judge people by what they wear. Judge them by how they treat others. Wealth means nothing if your heart is poor. Family is not just blood, it's loyalty, kindness, and respect.